With Matthew 24, we seem to enter a different world. In this passage, Matthew, quoting the long speech which Jesus gives to his disciples as they stand on the Mount of Olives looking over the holy city, Matthew uses, and Jesus uses, what we often call apocalyptic language, about the sun and the moon being darkened and the stars falling and all that. And if we know our Bibles, if we know the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament, we know that this is regular language which they used to describe actual space-time events, great rise and fall of nations and empires and cities, and to invest those events with their God-dimension significance, with their theological meaning. And Jesus is inviting his hearers and inviting us to enter into this strange moment when he says the climax of history is upon us, his own forthcoming death and resurrection, the fall of the holy city Jerusalem, and out beyond to the way in which God is going to act in judgment and mercy and put all things right once and for all. And the story of Jesus as he goes to his death is the story of how all this comes together into one point. I've written about this a bit in a recent book of mine, The Day the Revolution Began. And one of the points is that in the Gospels, and perhaps particularly Matthew, we see not only the story of Jesus, not only the story of Israel reaching its climax, not only the story of how we, Jesus followers, got launched on our journey, but also the story of how evil seemed to roll itself into a ball and come together into one dark spot, and then all be dumped onto Jesus, so that in Jesus' death, all the evil in the world would in principle be dealt with, so that God's new creation can be launched. That is the dark story which Matthew is inviting us to share this Lent. And as we approach ever closer towards the foot of the cross, it's a time for us to pause and to pray and to reflect on the darkness in our own lives, as well as the darkness in the world around, and somehow to see all that focused on the fate of Jesus.